let me just give a little background. I don't know how much Sharon told you about what this series of speakers is about, but since you're on a cruise ship, let me use the analogy of the buffet. We are hosting a series of presentations. We call it the Mental Health Speaker Series, Mental Health Mondays, through Rotary District 6440, which is a collection of 66 Rotary clubs throughout Northeast Illinois. And many of the clubs have direct activities supporting mental health initiatives. Last year, one of the Rotary International initiatives was to bring awareness to the world about mental health issues. And so we've taken this on with the great assistance of Sharon and Mariana to identify speakers, and again, just bring in a sort of a taste of all of the different components of mental health in our world. So thank you, Sharon, for organizing, and thank you. Whoops, I'm still admitting people. And thank you, Dan, for for your work in this. We've talked about mental health and suicide. We've talked about we've had a variety of speakers so far today. We've got a few more every month. And so again, thank you. And I think we'll just continue to have people jump in. For those of you who are able to, if you could put in your name and potentially your club in the participant ID, so that we know who we're, so that actually Sophia knows who's involved and in the room, but not necessary if that's too hard. So why don't you, I don't know if Dan, you want to lead this off, or Sophia, how do you want to handle this?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And Mary, thank you for that wonderful background and this sort of perspective and framing of both our time together today, but also the series. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Dan Paustian. I'm the assistant principal for the class of 2027 at New Trier High School. And so what that means is I am the assistant principal for the current sophomores. And so that's a position that continues on with a graduating class throughout their 4-year experience at New Trier. And I love it. I've been working in high schools for 18 years, 16 of them as some variation of school social worker. So 6 initially as school social worker, then social work coordinator for 10 years. Sorry, we just had a little internet hiccup at our school, so I think we're good now. And then we social work coordinator for 10 years, and now assistant principal for the past 2. And one of the interesting pieces about this when Sharon reached out was obviously technology is a ubiquitous part of all of our lives at this point, and certainly for teenagers as well. And thinking about over the course of the last 18 years, how much has changed, and what some of those both positive and challenges are presenting our youth with today. And so I want to thank Sharon for coordinating, organizing, and really bringing Sophia and I together to collaborate on this project, and also Rotary for spending your time and resources to think about the various complexities of teenagers and mental health overall. I think it's really important for us to be collaborative and partner in that. So without further ado, I'd like to do a brief introduction of Sophia, who I've had the privilege of getting to know over this semester. She's a senior at Stevenson High School. She has a range of interests, but some include biology, healthcare, medicine, neuroscience, and actually recently attended a summer program at Harvard. And so while it's impossible to list all of her accolades, she's a remarkable young person. And Sophia, is there anything else that you would like to share as we start our time together about yourself?
Of course. So I'm also involved in a mental health organization, student-led kind of leadership program at my high school called Peer Helpers. So we are essentially peer counselors for our peers, our fellow students. And so in this club, I feel like mental health has become one of my passions, and through this talk, I hope that shows itself. Mhm.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Sophia. And what some of you might know, but others might not, is part of the reason Sophia and I got connected was she's actually the recent award winner for Mental Health America Essay Contest, which she won last spring. And it's through part of what I learned. It was actually a cool connection between her English teacher at her school that really encouraged her at the time to submit a piece on youth and mental health and her work. And Sophia wrote a very powerful piece that to me, I guess, I would describe as provide the window into the experience of many teenagers. And she has graciously agreed to share her piece through reading that today with us. And what I think that will help provide is a window into certainly some students' experiences and teenagers with technology, but then also lead us into an opportunity for me to ask Sophia some questions. And then we also plan to have ample time for any of these participants to ask some questions of Sophia too about her experience and engage in conversation. So without further ado, Sophia, if I might ask you to read your essay, that would be wonderful.
Of course. Thank you so much, Dan, for that wonderful introduction. I'm going to begin reading now. So the title of this piece was called Scrolling Shackles, and I'll begin. Stop, please. You can't delete my account, is something an American teenager would say to their parents today. From Snapchat to TikTok to Instagram, as one scrolls through their phone, they often find themselves wandering through a maze, unsure of who to text next about the upcoming pep assembly or who to ask for physics homework answers. They are engrossed in their phone, eyes glued to plexiglass screen protectors, a white rectangle forever present in the reflection of their pupils. Is there any life left behind those irises? Or is the only light penetrating those orbs blue? Their fingers drift mindlessly from one brightly colored message or post to the next. They are chained to their phones, an invisible iron link from their wrist to the phone, never more than 2 feet apart. It's surprising how many dresses, snack, heel, boots, bracelets can fit into the Amazon shopping cart until the link at the top of the page breaks. Is it enough for them to break the chain linking them to their phones? Probably not. Social media is a jail shackling the users with the enticing message, your following request has been accepted. To forever capture them, the key to the prison gate is thrown away, much like that password for the firewall lost long ago. Social media consumes them, becoming a ringing, dinging, pinging distraction from reality. Many teens suffer from worrying about a missed text, post, or uploaded video. But while they sit and stare, they miss the smile on their cousin at her birthday party. They miss laughing with their friends after a brutal Spanish test. And they miss their teammates scoring the final point in a soccer match. Reality is tapping at the door. But can they answer it? Psst, never mind. It was just the Amazon delivery. Ooh, they like the jeans. They just need to post them. The use of social media is obligatory for many. Not for me. I won't succumb to the pull of the ping when an influencer posts a new acai bowl hack on Instagram. I pride myself on the fact that I don't feel the need to scroll endlessly on TikTok. I thank my mom for preserving the small amount of unaltered body image and self-esteem I had. No reason to stare at those stick-figured models and Kardashians at the time. I was only 13. Still, the obsession of social media around me has only grown, much like the list of followers on every platform. Yet so has the growth of fear of missing out, anxiety, and depression. So has the growth of anorexia and bulimia. So has the growth of suicide. Are these linked? A link like the chain that holds many so near and dear to their phones. A chain that holds one's mental health and their phones so that when one gets out of control, ringing and dinging and chiming, then the other can only follow? Oh, how I long to see a broken chain.
Sophia, amazing. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you sharing. And every time I listen to or hear your words, to me, they strike me with such power, such personal connection to your experience, but what I believe many of us have heard from others on this screen as well. So thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable to share it in front of a group of people that you've never met before. So thank you.
No worries.
Questions for you. I have an opportunity to have an interview with you in December, and we were able to chat a little bit about some of what motivated you to submit this piece, some of your experiences, and also some of the things that may have changed since you submitted this piece last spring. And so, if you don't mind, I'd love to just do a brief Q&A before we open it up to the larger group. And I'll start with one that, I think a lot of us might be curious about. And really, what led you to have interest in writing this piece initially?
So this piece, I found out about the Mental Health America's writing competition, as I mentioned before, through my AP English language and composition teacher last year. The idea for the essay came to me after I started thinking about my interaction with social media and the rest of the internet, as well as my school year's reliance on technology, as well as my family. I have 3 smaller siblings, and they're playing games on their dad's phone and stealing my phone before I wake up to go watch Curious George. So I also reflected on my cousin's use of the internet and social media, as well as like YouTube and TikTok. So I feel like this really was an opportunity for me to share a little bit of my perspective. And I thank Sharon for that, and for Mental Health America for providing this opportunity through my essay.
That's wonderful, Sophia. I really appreciate that. And I think the words you used, at least in my mind, created a very vivid picture of what your experience was and perhaps what some other teenagers' experience with technology could be. And so for me, as I was able to think about that, it offered me an opportunity to reflect on what you were sharing, but then also sort of a lens or a window into what somebody's experience with technology that was not my own in high school could be navigating right now and thinking about the complexity of that. So thank you for doing that. Curious for you, Sophia, how or if and how things have changed for you since you penned this piece last year, I believe as a junior, and now you're a senior in high school. What's changed for you since you wrote the piece?
So I feel like in that essay, I was very critical of social media and the internet and the use of technology overall in general. But I would say I have a perspective that's slightly different. I can see more of the positives as well as the negatives on both sides of the issue.
Okay, and I'm curious. I wonder if others are as well. What would you say some of those positive aspects of technology that you've discovered or had a chance to experience since you wrote this piece that might shift your perspective a little bit?
That's a great question. I feel like I have a lot to say about this topic, especially because I focused so much on the negative aspects in my essay. So I want to talk specifically about the rise of generative AI because this is quite new, and the way we can be talking about AI in general, just from hearing my school peers and teachers talk about generative AI, such as ChatGPT, can be quite dismissive at first glance. And regarding education, I believe the rise of generative AI can be quite helpful, actually. So even though it gets a bad rap, ChatGPT can be useful for generating outlines and ideas to get started on an assignment. I used to be so adamant about not using ChatGPT and being against it, generating my own ideas. But now I see that it can be useful for generating outlines and ideas to get started on the assignment. I also personally use it to help me generate synonyms for words in other essays I write, as it is very easy to simply input the context and synonyms, and it will generate me synonyms that are usually a perfect match to be in the content of my essay. A couple of teachers at my school has also begun using different forms of AI as a teaching tools. For example, in my AP biology class, we uploaded an audio recording of each student's explanation of photosynthesis. And the AI tool then used a rubric, for example, and the teacher gave it beforehand to grade it. And I feel like I learned a lot from this experience from using this as a tool. Also, another example would be before every unit test, my AP psychology teacher uses an AI platform called Magic School, where she uploads a guide to the platform based on the College Board's description and exam information for that unit, as well as what we learned in class. And then we can ask questions to the AI tool, or even ask us to make up quiz questions in the same style that will appear on our test. And this has been very helpful, especially because I can ask it to check in my weak areas with specific questions on specific topics, whereas I might have to go
Could
through
I
the whole-
interrupt for just 1 second? I think Dan and Sophia are the only two that have the audio on, but there is some background noise, another microphone that seems to be trying to fight for some time. I don't know if it's either one of you, but I think everybody else has now muted their mic. So could you possibly take a look at that?
I was
Thank
like,
you,
I'm
Mary.
not sure.
I'll mute mine too as Sophia's talking, just in case it happens to be me.
Yeah. It might be on the cruise ship. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Oh.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Sophia.
No, go ahead. I hope it works now. Does it sound better?
It does.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So as I was saying, I believe those uses of AI could be very helpful. And it can also help students learn, especially those who don't have access to resources at their school. I'm lucky enough to go to a school where I can, such as Stevenson, where I can ask tutors after school to help me like find quotes for a novel, for my English essay, or walk me through a calculus problem step by step. But technology can help with all of that for students who may not necessarily have access to that after the school day ends.
Sophia, thank you so much for that. I think, it's really interesting to hear directly from a student, and I would, from my lens, a very balanced perspective of the nuances that technology, and I think you spoke a lot specifically to AI and what some of the aspects of this emerging field that can really be used as what I would consider a tool is how what I heard you saying time and time again, which is interesting for me to think about as someone who has not grown up utilizing or being aware of those, having access to those tools. And so I think that leads me kind of to my next question for you, Sophia. I'm certainly an adult here, and I'm an adult who works in a high school setting. And so I'm curious what you believe is important for us to hear from you as a teenager about technology from your perspective.
So I believe technology is not all bad, but neither is it all good. Like with many things, many questions surrounding technology are in a gray area. Such as from a parent's perspective, how much time should my teen be spending on their device? When should I be worried? What can I do to support them? Or a teacher's perspective, should I assign assignments online or print them out? It really is different based on a case by case basis, and each person is different. But I would try to also, I don't want to speak on all teens, on all youth, but I would consider sticking closer to the recommendations made by professionals. Online, but I hope this was helpful in offering my point of view on the issue, and I hope you took something away from it.
Thanks, Sophia. I appreciate that. And I am curious as my final question before we open it up to our wonderful people who have joined is a question that's curious to me in my position. How can adults help? So from not asking you to speak for all teenagers, but from your perspective, you spoke about teachers, you spoke about your mother. How can adults, whether they're in family, professionals, or just people who care about kids and the welfare of our future, what are some thoughts you might share with us?
Of course. So I would suggest having honest conversation with the teens. Ask them, how much time do you spend on technology a day, a week? Do you feel like it's impacting your life, general well-being, mental health in any way negatively? Do you need to cut back? And like, how can we support you through that process and go from there? There are many resources available to help teens they feel technology may be negatively affecting their mental health, such as app timers, screen time limits, parental controls, as well as mental health exercises like journaling, yoga, breathing exercises, etc.
Sophia, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you sharing your essay, your thoughts and perspectives with us here. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your experiences.
Of course. Thank you so much for learning.
Okay, and thank you again, everyone, for joining us. One of the pieces that Sophia and I really wanted to make sure was available to this group and in our partnership with Sharon is the opportunity to engage in some conversation with people who join the session today. And so we'd like to spend the remaining portion of our time today doing our best to respond to questions or just engaging in conversation, things that stood out to you, things that may have surprised you, things that you're curious to know more about as a result of Sophia's essay, our conversation, or just the topic in general. So I think, Sharon, if that's okay with you, we can move on to that part of our time together.
Very okay. Very okay. I'm gonna kick it off by asking a question, Sophia. That the topic was selected. Well, the topic was given. We've got over 100 responses to that very topic. So, number one, it was a pleasure to shake your hand and give you that award. Number two is, so you said something that really piqued an interest, and that no one has brought up in the 100 essays I read, is when you said, how much time are you spending on, I think your word was technology. And I thought about food. I thought about the analogy of food, of how much are you eating? Is it dinner or is it snacks? Is there a way to divide up your screen time? And I'm thinking really for parents' benefit. Is there a way to divide up screen time from AI for an AP biology class or Facebook?
So is your question, how can we best divide up screen time to make sure it's used more effectively? Okay.
Right.
Okay. So I believe in my personal experience, a lot of technology that I use is mostly for my education. I spend a lot of time on my iPad, especially. I'm a senior, so I'm going through the college app, applying to colleges. So I use a lot of time writing essays on Google Docs. So I feel like making sure there's a balance that for your mental health, you should try to balance your time on screen, like use educational resources, as well as if you wanted to connect with your friends online or family members online. Make sure there's a cohesive balance with using both of those kinds of technology. So, for example, I try to make sure I spend the majority of time I spend online is used for education, and I prefer to connect with my family members in person when possible. So I tend to use very little of my time on technology, trying to talk to family members and friends, because I prefer to speak with them in person, or maybe not, because I can see them maybe the day after or in a week. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it did. It did. And let's give some other people a chance to ask some questions, and then I'd like to circle back to that if there's time.
Yeah, I have a question, and that is, what has been the response of your student friends, of your peers to the essay that you wrote and the negative part of social media that you brought that you highlighted?
So, great question. I believe my friends, they noticed how negatively I focused on the impacts of social media, but I feel like they also recognize those negative impacts that they have, and they feel as if it might have been kind of like a wake-up call. Like, I don't want to get this far, this bad. I don't want to go so deep into the negative impacts of social media. So I think writing this essay and winning this award and sharing my essay with them may have been a great opportunity for me to show them this can happen, and I don't want it to go that far.
So
Thank
that could be an action step. Robert, you have a question.
Yes. First, Dan and Sophia, thank you very much for making this happen. Also, Sharon, it's good to see you again, and thank you for all you do. My name's Robert Martirosi, and I'm with the Rotary Club of Winnetka Northfield. I'm also a practicing clinical social worker for going on 50 years. Sophia, your essay touched me in many ways. And it wasn't the way, one of the things it did is it really captured the challenges that young people have, the way that technology could just suck people in. I don't know if you would be comfortable with this, and I'll tell you why I'm making the request. Could your essay be available to us? In my practice, I work with a lot of adults who are baffled by how could my kids get into this? Why? Why? You help answer that question and would provide a wonderful launching pad in a way much better than I could of really exploring and first of all, helping them understand fully what the challenge is, and then to think of how to creatively help their children with it.
Of course. I will talk to Sharon and send her the link. And of course, I'd be love to share my essay and share the perspective I had with others.
Thank you very much.
I noticed a couple other people had made that same request, so I appreciate that offer, Sophia. And as Rotarians are people of action, so I think that we will take that essay and let other people know about your insights and perspectives with respect, because it took a lot for you to write that. But thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Other questions for Sophia? I know, Mary, I think you wanted to come back to something, but I could be mistaken on that. Sharon, I see you took your mute off. You have a question?
It was I who wanted to come back to something,
apologize, Sharon.
but I don't want to take the time if other people have questions. All right, let me ask you this briefly. Regarding what Mary just said about Rotary clubs being of action. First, I'm going to preface it by saying Sophia was a winner of the mental health contest. And I did have the opportunity to read all, I think it was 104 this year, essays. So there are quite a lot that we do have that could be points of discussion as far as Rotary clubs. With proper permission from the kids and parents. That's one thing. A real point of action, and here I'm speaking as a mom. I have a grandchild who's just starting high school, and he's talked about screen time. I'm still thinking about dividing of screen time. The blur between this is new this year, or to me this year, of homework and playing games when you're on the screen. How can I mean, you're going to have to leave your kids to an honor system of what they're watching. You're not going to watch over their shoulder. But is there any advice you have to parents to delineate that, to say this much time for homework and this much time for take 10 minutes or an hour or whatever you need for chatting with your friends or doing whatever you do that is not educational?
Can I add to that? How would you monitor that as a parent?
That's, well, your kids have to be on an honor system, but how would you tell what would a good parent do to stay a good parent in this era of technology?
What a great question. My own mom struggles with that because my little siblings have like to play games on their phone. So I would suggest make sure they do all the homework first. Do all your homework, get your homework out of the way, so you don't play an hour of video games and then, oh no, you have no time for math homework. And I would also, I know in the App Store setting, you can look at screen time and how many minutes they are spending on each app. So if you know there's only like 30 minutes being spent on the math homework, the app they use for math homework versus an hour used for playing Geometry Dash, then we can switch things up a little bit.
Right.
And I think that's maybe one way to monitor. But I know as high schoolers, maybe it's not as practical. And I would just suggest, like I did in my questions with Dan, just talking through your teen, making sure they know it's not healthy to be on your screen time so much, and maybe things can change if things are getting excessive.
If I could put you together with it doesn't have to be winners of the contest, with some other teams, and I would like to suggest that Dan or I have the opportunity to do that, so that you don't just pick your friends from your school. Could you write a short, and it could be a 1-page guide, numerical guide for parents, education for parents, a to-do list or a not to-do list? And I will, it sounds, you could say balance in those words. In the way old days, I don't even know if they had this when you were coming up. We used to have the paper TV guide, the little magazine thing. Other people on this call remember that? And I would make my kids use a, I don't know, highlighter or something, and choose whatever they had. I think it was 2 30-minute sitcoms or whatever, and that was it. They could choose that, and then whatever other TV was on in the house, it was news or it was something else. I heard a parent tell me, "Oh, that's a good idea." Could you give parents a good idea?
Sure, I would love to compile along with other teams and like
One day maybe. We'll get together.
And I think Sharon, you bring up a great point, and I don't know if the 12:30 deadline is a hard sort of stop, but I think perhaps like a closing piece is one of sincere thanks to Sophia for sharing her perspective. I think a lot of the questions that we got to a little bit as well. Sophia, I thought your responses were so thoughtful and so appropriate in terms of having honest conversations with your teens. Something Sharon just mentioned too brings up the words of shared and understood expectations around use of time on screens and things like that, so that if there is a divergence from that, not everything has to be homework, but maybe not everything should be games either. There's an opportunity to come back to that conversation as parent and child, or adult caretaker and child. The other piece I would encourage this panel to consider and parents to consider, certainly what Sophia said, those honest conversations are so critical with parents, but also if it's school related specifically, think about what resources or input is already available through their school. I can't speak for all schools, but I do know that our technology department at New Trier is, in my opinion, very helpful in terms of communicating with parents some options for how to monitor, how to set restrictions, and then providing some information that could be helpful for them to navigate some of those nuances. And that could be age appropriate. So if you're thinking about a middle school student versus a senior in high school like Sophia, who is very, in what I've learned, able to navigate some of those nuances independently, those could all change, right, developmentally speaking. And so thinking about what resources within your family, within your school, and then there's also professionals on this screen as well, in addition to members of the Rotary, thinking about when it might be time to seek some guidance or support from a professional if there's an area of need for either a student, a child, or a family to help shape some of those expectations. So I'll stop talking, but I want to just again say a sincere thank you to Sharon, to the Rotary Club, and really specifically to Sophia for your partnership in this and for taking the time to share your work and part of your vacation to join us today. So thank you.
Thank you, Sophia.
And I'm going to close with a thank you to the technology of Rotary to make this happen, with Sophia being on a cruise ship in Florida. This is very cool.
I think we might have Jillian on here, our administrator. So
Jillian,
thank you,
right.
Jillian.
I think so. We're moving
And
along.
please, you know, and
And
I
our
will
intention
also,
would
I
be-
will also close by saying, you know, please spread the word. We have these every Monday, the first Monday of every month through the year. And this won't be the same topic next month, but I guarantee it'll be a topic of interest in the mental health world for you.
We have a calendar filled out.
And there's a calendar on the district website. Thank you. But thank you all. And I'll close the meeting now.
Be well, everybody.
Enjoy your
Thank you.
vacation.
Mhm.